In this video, I'm going to show you how to make stair stringers, and we're going to do it right now. This is my front deck, and this is a stair stringer. It goes like this and makes your steps. Of course, there's going to be more every 16 inches. I'm going to show you how to make these, and all you really need is a 2x12, a circular saw, a jigsaw, a frame and square, and a calculator. The two elements that make up the stair stringer are the rise and the run. The rise is this right here, up and down, that distance, and then the run is this, your step, basically, horizontally. In order to calculate those, there's a couple things you need to take into account. For me, I was able to put the deck wherever I wanted, height-wise, and change the step from the door down to the deck so that I could get the step that I wanted. If you're able to do the same thing, that's great, but you don't have to. I also built my stringer, and then I measured for my pad and put my pad where I wanted it. And again, if you don't have that, that's okay. So I'm gonna go over this in a way that we're gonna assume that the deck is where it is and the pad is where it is, or it doesn't have to be a deck. It could be just a landing and a landing. And we're gonna cut the stringers to that, and then you can apply those same principles if you need to maneuver these things either way. Now, in order to calculate the rise, you have a level here above your landing where you want it to land. And mine is 22.5. So if I knew that this is exactly 3 risers, that's 1 being down here, 2 being right here, and 3 being right here, I would divide this by 3, and I would get 7.5. So that means I want to make my rise 7.5 inches. You want to be sure that the steps are all the same, that this rise is the same all the way up, because there are codes. There are codes for how wide the stairs need to be. There is a minimum, and I believe the code is for rise from finished surface to finished surface cannot be more than 8.5, and the run can be no less than 9 inches. But don't quote me on that, because every place is different. You're gonna need to check your local building codes. So all of my stairs are good right at 7.5, 7.5, and 7.5. Now, one important thing that a lot of people forget is the finished surface. So there's a piece of decking here, then framing, decking here, then framing, decking here, framing, and there's no decking here. This is actually 6.5 because you subtract whatever the width of your finished material is, because this is now technically your finished material. Okay, I want to try and explain this as simply as I possibly can with my fancy schmancy diagram here and a calculator. So this is the deck or the landing, and this is the pad or where you want the stairs to land. So I took my level across here and measured this height. That is 22.5 inches. Now, I said that my risers are going to be 7.5, and I knew how many risers I was going to have. But you're going to start out like this, and what you're going to have to do basically is guess. So let's take a guess, and we're going to forget about this 22.5 because this is a short run. This is going to work for a longer run. So let's say your total rise right here from where you want the stairs to land up to the top of the landing is 80 inches. So we put in 80 inches, and I'm going to take a guess and say divide that by 7. This exceeds code, so we know that that's not going to work. So you take another guess. 80 divided by 8. That's going to equal 10. Still exceeds code. And we guess again. 80 divided by 10. That's pretty simple. 8 inches. So that's under code. That's 8 inches. That means you're going to have 10 risers. 1 includes the deck, but something that you need to take into account is you say, okay, I'm going to have 10 risers. That means I'm going to have 9 steps. I want to figure out what the width is going to be and where that's going to put me right here, basically my total run. If I come up short from the pad, what I can do is do 80 inches and add a stair divided by 11, 7.27. That'll extend the total run by 1 step. I want to do 2 pieces of decking for each step. I also want to do 3/4 trim on the front of each riser, and I want to have a 1-inch overhang. So I measure the width of the decking, and for my run, the cut on my stringer, I subtract 1 3/4 inches. That equals the trim and the overhang. Now let's say you guessed that you are going to have 4 risers. 22.5 divided by 4 equals 5.625, which equals 5 5/8. So now you have 4 risers. 1, 2, 3, 4. And 5 5/8 is great. That's a good step. Now you've added more stairs, but also what you've done is you've shortened the run if that is where you want to land on the pad. In my case, if I wanted those 2 pieces of decking for my step, I would have a stringer that looked like this. And what does that do? That puts me way over here on my pad, and all of a sudden this is all thrown off. And there is a minimum when it comes to the step. So if I was to land in the same place here, this measurement here would be too small of a step. So for me, 22.5 divided by 3, 3 risers, 2 steps is gonna be perfect. I hope this all makes sense. So now that you have your rise measurement and your run measurement, you can grab your framing square and go over to your 2x12. So I've determined that my rise is 7.5 and my run is 9 1/4. So I want to take my framing square, and this is going to be my rise side. So you can see the numbers here, 1, 2, 3, all the way to 7.5. I want to hold my finger right there. And then on the run side, I'm going to go to 9 1/4, which is right here. I'm going to put my finger right there, and you line it up on your 2x12. You can actually buy these little brass nuts that go right here. That makes this easier if you have a lot more steps or if you're going to be doing this a lot, but I don't need them. Put that at 9 1/4, put this one at 7.5, and I'm going to mark that. Now I'm going to take the square and I'm just going to move it down right to that point and hold it 7.5, and then hold this one over here at 9 1/4 and mark that. And this is a small stringer. If you had a longer one, you just keep doing that same thing all the way down. But with me, that's as many as I need. So I'm going to hold this square right like this along this line and make a mark right here. So this is my top riser. This will be my first run or my first step. So I want to measure this at 9 1/4, and then I want to hold my square again, square against this line, and right at that mark, and mark that. So this is the top of the stringer. First run, first rise, second run, last rise. And as I said before, we're going to take off the material, whatever the thickness of the material is, from the bottom. So you can measure from that line you made here, whatever your material is, and then move your square down, hold it on that line, and mark that. Now that is the bottom of the stringer, and I can cut this out. Make sure you write on one of these template so you know which one to mark, because if you make a copy of a copy of a copy, things start changing. So use this one to mark all of them. you'll be good. So now I'm just going to take the template, mark these out, and cut the rest of them. There's more than one way to do this, but this is the way that I did them, so I figured I'd show you. As far as attaching them, you should use metal brackets. They're like kind of like joist hangers, but they're for stair stringers. The way I like to do it is I just set them all up. I make sure everything's good. I just want to check all the measurements, make sure they're good, and then I nail them from the back side. You can see I added a 2x4 to the deck because these stringers were lower, so I nailed them into that. I attached lags, 5.5-inch lag bolts into the stringers, and I attached that 2x4 with lags into the deck. That's how I like to do it. It ends up giving a nice clean look on the outside. Not that you're going to see that after I put the treads and the trim and everything on, but using this method makes them nice and tight against the frame. Like I said, there's plenty of ways that you can do this, but this is the method that I like to use. If you wanted to attach the bottom of the stringers to whatever landing you're putting them on, you can do that. This is just such a short run. There's so many stringers that this thing is not going anywhere, so they're just sitting on top of the concrete pad. But again, if you wanted to, you could get some brackets or some anchors and attach them there. So that's how you cut stair stringers. I hope this video helped. I hope I didn't confuse you even more. I tried to explain it the best I could. It really is simple. Don't let the measurements and the numbers and stuff fool you. It really is pretty simple. Leave me a comment. Let me know how I did explaining it. If you're watching this right when I publish this video, stay tuned for the time lapse of this whole deck build. I'm hoping it's going to be really cool. And if it's already out, go ahead and check it out. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you on the next one.